Hey, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Black in the Saddle. I'm your host, Aubriana Johnson, and boy, do I have a treat for you. Now, let me introduce our guest on this episode. Dr. Letitia Mason has spent over 2 decades moving between two worlds that rarely overlap: elite academic administration and equine programs for the youth. She held admissions leadership roles at North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics, earning her honors, including Coca-Cola Educator of Distinction and a Martin Luther King Keeper of the Dream Award. Now, what started in High Point, North Carolina in 1982, her and her mom spent 25 years leading the Eagle Mounted Scholars Inner City Youth Initiative, an HUD recognized and funded program partnering kids from under resourced environments with horses to build life and leadership skills. She holds a PhD in leadership studies from North Carolina A&T, okay, go Aggies. And her doctoral research examined leadership self-efficacy and led her to developing the Mason Leadership Self-Efficacy Model as a tool to measure resilience and grit. She is coming to the Kinship Conference to share how we can use tools such as this to build incredible programs for the youth. I cannot wait till you hear her journey and learn from her in this episode. Let's get into it.
I am so excited to have Dr. Letitia Mason here. Ah, we've been chatting just a little bit prior to hitting the record button, and I am so excited to not necessarily nerd out, but basically because
I love
we
Nerd Out.
we see eye to eye on a
Me
lot,
too.
and I just love how there is just this balance of academia and
Yes.
horses. So,
Yes.
welcome to Black in the Saddle.
Thank you so much. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with you, Aubriana. I have been following you for years. So it's a pleasure to sit here with you and to be a part of your first, well, one of your, we're going to say, highly successful and biggest conferences, the Kinship Conference. So I'm looking forward to our time.
Yes, yes, yes. We are speaking all of that into existence
Amen.
because it has been a journey, but it has been so powerful to
Yeah.
put this together. And I wanted to get you on to really hear more about your story. I know a lot of the background of your story, but I wanted to share that with the Black in the Saddle family so that they can know who they're going to be learning from at the Kinship Conference. Um, we met in person for real
For real, for
when
real.
you invited me to a gala in was that in Cary?
Yes, the Corral
Um
Riding Academy. Yes.
yeah, for a Corral Riding Academy, and that was such a beautiful
Oh,
experience. But that was
yeah.
the first time we had met in person, and I learned so much about you. So
Oh,
before we start talking about what you're doing now, I would love to go way back
okay.
and just figure out, how did you get here? How did the horses even enter the picture for you?
Wow. Yeah, that goes way, way back. I have to say that I attribute a lot of my interest in horses just to I always thought they were magical creatures. They always put me in a space of awe. My uncle, who lived in Davie County, Mocksville, North Carolina, had
Mhm.
two, I thought they were horses back then, but they were ponies, Mitzi and Tootsie. And they were
Oh
both
my god.
paint ponies. But
Mhm.
I just remember looking in their eyes and just feeling like they were so magical. I also kind of intuitively understood that there were things I had to do in order to make sure that they would stay with me, stay around me, which
Mhm.
led me to kind of intuit that it had a lot to do with my energy. Even if I was excited, they didn't understand excitement from fear. They just knew it was intense energy. So having to calm and quell that,
Mhm.
I began to use that skill in other spaces. So as I moved along from there, the other thing that brought my interest in horses was I was having a conversation with my grandfather. He was a well-known minister in High Point. We had the largest church in that area, Reverend D.D. Mason, Dennis DeQuincy. And every Sunday morning we'd have breakfast at his house. The
Mm-hmm.
whole family around the table. We had to read a Bible verse, and of course we said a prayer. And we often pulled out the things that we had gone through within that week to talk about. And so I had just integrated into my first public school in High Point, Mont Elementary, and I was seeing some things I hadn't seen when I was in the Catholic school, which was primarily Black. And so I asked my grandfather, how do we rectify these things if we're supposed to be Christians and we're treating each other this way? And he started out by saying, of course, well, baby girl, that's a horse of a different color. Now, he went on to do this long, engaging speech, but all I got stuck on was a horse of a different color. And so everyone knew me for being very figurative. So they knew they couldn't say literal. So they couldn't say figurative things around me. I'm sorry, I couldn't confuse that. And so I then left him and went down this huge rabbit hole that lasted several weeks, looking up everything about a horse and what color what that must that horse have been. So I learned about all of the the face markings, the body markings, the breeds,
Mm-hmm.
the colors. And I went back to my grandfather after some time and said, "What color was that horse?" So he just laughed and he hugged me and he kind of tried to describe to me the difference between colloquialisms and things like that. But that was the key. And all of that information I had in my head just made me want to have more of an affinity for horses. And I sought out horses from that point on whenever I could throughout my schooling. And it wasn't until my mom and dad eventually bought my first horse. His name was the Perfect Man. He was a registered quarter horse. Uh,
Oh,
and he was a sweetheart. He was a gelding. And that really just set things for me. He was a chestnut, so he was red
yeah.
with a beautiful blaze down his nose.
Mm-hmm.
And we were together for many, many years. We had to go through some challenges because the way he had initially been loaded, they had tied ropes around his hind legs and tried to drag him in. And so
Mm-hmm.
he had a fear of loading for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. And so
Mm-hmm.
we worked through that. And he was my joy. He was my happy place. He was my stress free place. He was the place that I really felt like I could be present in the moment and not worry about what was going to happen or what had happened. So that followed me through life. But that's how it all began with that conversation about a horse of a different color, so to speak.
I love that. As someone as a child that also grew up with like encyclopedias and dictionaries and all
Gosh,
that, it's like
yes.
so when you said XYZ, did you mean, that very like
Right.
studious, we're gonna get down to the bottom of this mystery? I was
Yes.
also that child.
Yes.
So I love that. I love that this
Just that
very
hunger and thirst for knowledge and that curiosity.
yes.
I wanted to know everything I could about them. And it certainly
Yeah.
proved to bear out to be purposeful long term. So I count that as a blessing.
Yeah. So tell me about the perfect man. Did you all
Oh my.
compete or like what was that relationship like?
He was my regular say hobby horse. We didn't
Mhm.
compete, but
Okay.
it was as a result of having him that I decided that I there was something to my intuiting that there were some things that happen around horses that could be beneficial to other young people, not only in helping them to self-regulate, but to become leaders. And so um, in about 82 or so, my mom and my father had worked for a housing authority, urban housing and urban development. And then he was a city planner. And so he had sent some information about a grant from HUD for programs for youth, inner city youth. And so I
Mhm.
thought, hey, this would be a great opportunity to write a grant to help to get young people in my hometown introduced into horseback riding and horsemanship and all of the gifts that come with that. The work ethic, the sense of community, of being a part of a herd, the sense of leadership and empathy and taking care of, and learning how to communicate in a different way that was really nonverbal. I
Mhm.
didn't know how much the nonverbal part would eventually become so practical and sought after, but that was how I leaned in. And so um, the perfect man was the way that I worked to come up with tools to see what would work best with other young people. And subsequently, my mom and I ran a program called the Eagle Mounted Scholars. So the Eagles, because my mom was the president of our Alumni Association, North Carolina Central University. So it was the Eagles, and we knew we would have the alumni chapter to support it.
Yeah.
Equine, because it was mounted, because they were working with horses, and then
Mhm.
scholars, because there was a major component of making sure that they had earned the grades to be a part of the program. And so we ran that program for 25 years. It was funded through HUD, and we worked with all of the housing communities, public housing communities in my hometown of High Point. And we were blessed to have many of the Black saddle clubs in High Point, Greensboro, to allow us to use their spaces for the young people to learn their horsemanship, to learn being a part of a herd by, mucking the stalls and scooping
Mhm.
poop, and then grooming and that kind of thing. Once
Mhm.
they earn the privilege to ride, and I think I'm extending beyond my first horse here, I they then had an opportunity to compete. And so at our historic Black Park in High Point, Washington Terrace Park,
Mhm.
we hosted a horse show every year. And the
Oh.
beauty of it was, everything is set up, and the buses from Parks and Recreation would go to each of the housing communities to pick up the parents, the siblings, the grandmas, the aunts and uncles, anyone who wanted to come out and view. And then you had these young people who had been coming in and out of this program. Maybe they had been teased about what they were doing because nobody really understood their connection to the horses. And all
Mhm.
of a sudden, you see them in their cowboy, cowgirl gear with their hats on, and they're sitting astride these magnificent creatures, and in control of them, and they're winning ribbons, and
Mhm.
they're showing this sense of confidence that never leaves them. And so at that point, I knew that horse, the perfect man, that name was perfect because he was the perfect equine to teach me what I needed to learn to create the
Yes.
programs to get this idea. And so
Yes.
I attribute that to him. Unfortunately, the place that I stabled him, the gentleman was in a major accident. And so
Mhm.
they had to seize the property. And although I could show that the horse was mine, the things you learn from situations like that.
Mm.
I was only able to direct where I could send the horse to, and so I was able to donate him to a equine assisted program in the Guilford County area, and I could go
Okay.
visit him anytime and certainly could work with him.
Yeah.
But it was for youth who we were learning were showing autism. We didn't know it back then, that's what it was, but
Yeah.
eventually that's what it became. And so that's
Well,
the perfect
I
man, and that's the gift he gave me.
I that's incredible. And there's some things that we need to point out. You said this program started in 1982. I want to call that out
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I mean, this industry of equine assisted services
I had no idea
is
that we
it's so
were,
new.
yes,
It's still very new, and there's research coming out now, just a
yes,
trickle. There's just trickle of research coming out now, but it is incredible to be able to say that not only you were able to run this program for
Yeah.
25 years, but starting in 82 from a government funded grant.
Yes. Incredible.
That is phenomenal.
Incredible.
And targeting and serving primarily Black youth.
Absolutely. I I I underestimated the importance and the significance of the program then. It was just something that I thought I was sharing with the community because of what I'd learned from being around horses. But then, as my career in life went on, now as I went through my career, most folks did not know I was doing the horse thing
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want it to look like I was, taking any time away from that focus.
Yeah.
And so it actually was after I retired and had moved to South Carolina, come back and found myself in a circumstance where, a Black female with my credentials was not a lot of space at that time. Yeah, we remember that's been very recent. And so
Yeah.
rather than continuing to throw my hat in the arena, I decided that I was going to step back and I needed to be back in a space that was healing, which was with
Yeah.
horses for me. And
Yeah.
so I spent some time with Hope Rains,
Mm-hmm.
loving how they worked with young people with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And also starting to have that seep in that, wait a minute, this is what you were doing some 10, 15 years ago and just
Yeah.
casually doing. And now it seems that some others have taken the idea and run away with it. And probably the closest model to what we were doing would have been the Corral Riding Academy because they had the educational component where they had tutors and the
Mm-hmm.
kids had to have certain grade point averages. Now they are only geared toward young women.
Mm-hmm.
And we were inclusive of both male and female, but it helped me to recognize how limited and my perspective of what I could do with my horse love um, was at that time because I didn't see anybody else doing it at that level.
Mm-hmm.
But once I get in that space, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
exactly what we were
Yeah.
doing, all the way down to
Yeah.
the research and the research from our program and showed that there were no incidents for the young people. We usually had them through middle to high school. No incidents of in school suspension, no out of school suspension, no teen pregnancies, no dropouts. Everyone went on to either a 4-year, 2-year college, or they did a trade. And many of those young people are still, I call mine surrogate nieces and nephews, and they
Yeah.
have children of their own, and they talk about making sure that their children are involved with horses because they understand the impact it had and all
Yeah.
of the subtle skills, the soft skills that you get from horseback engagement or horse riding that we really don't talk about.
Yes, that is incredible. That is
Thank you.
truly incredible. So, you talked about how you didn't really tell people
I
that
did.
you were doing this. Can you kind of share why that just felt like a little bit of a disconnect? And I will say I'm asking because that is something that I often say in my spiels. I'm
Yeah,
like, there are Black cowboys or Black equestrians, Black horse folk, however you identify.
yeah,
They are your accountants, your teachers, your secretaries.
yeah,
They have this life and it
yes.
is so precious, but oftentimes it is not shared.
Yes. Kept very quiet. Well, I think, growing up initially, there were not folks I could really bring along for that ride because if there's a fear initially, then they're going to hold me back, right? So I just kind of went
Yeah.
along because this was something I enjoyed. As time went on, I started to kind of mention it. But most people just thought, oh, she just goes to take a ride, that kind of thing. I never really had pictures like of my horse in my office or anything
Uh-huh.
like that.
Uh-huh.
I think they might have been able to tell because I wore boots a lot. I love boots, but not so much. So I think it was really because I wanted to keep something in a different silo than the, how can I say, the forward projection, the I'd say ministry that I had in the work I did in education. I wanted to keep that very separate. Um, little did I know that those two lives were really riding parallel the whole time. It took coming off the career conveyor belt to really have that sink in. But initially, it was just like, okay, this is over here. This will be a good thing to help young people to develop their sense of self-worth, sense of what I call self-efficacy. And possibly get into the School of Science and Math. They have that confidence, that's that grit. Horses can do that, but I didn't take it further than that. But that's interesting. And I guess maybe I did see folks I had Black folks who had horses and farms, but it was just kind of a comfort thing. We had Black riding clubs, but I had not seen any of us really do programming at that level. And I guess it's kind of like when you come from a culture and they want you to do like engineering and the STEMs as opposed to art. I felt like, how can I hang my hat on that? So I need to be very focused on what I want to do and serious about it. But I believe it was only my mindset more than anything. It wasn't anything that my parents told me that I could not do. I just assumed it was not going to be a life income making way to live.
That is my one of the many soapboxes that I will get on as a student that went through the STEM track and didn't have a lick of time for any sort of creative class. But whose life and career has been built off of the creativity that I have.
Absolutely.
So that is a whole nother episode. Let's talk about where these things started to connect for you. I want to learn more about this research that you were doing and the models that you were able to create, the self-efficacy, and how you eventually started to bridge those gaps.
Okay, so as I look back, I almost, well, I won't say I believe that there were cues before I came into this life that I would run into that would be pivotal. And so in walking through my life, there were points where I knew that my decision about something was going to be very critical to the trajectory of my life. And I could feel that if I didn't come to the right point, it wouldn't necessarily not allow me to do it anyway, but it would push me back in my time frame. And one of those things was, how do I, with my work in education, I was director of admissions with the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics, which is the first public residential high school in the nation and across the world. Most residential schools are boarding schools and they're quite expensive. And so this idea that Governor Hunt had back in 1979 to create this school, it was only voted into place by one vote in the legislature, which meant STEM was not popular back then. Governor Hunt understood that in order to reposition our state in North Carolina from being so strongly agrarian to being high tech and STEM associated, was to have students who were prepared to go into STEM fields. And so you had to start in high school. And so the School of Science and Math was created. The thing about science, go ahead.
Oh, this is the same Governor Hunt that the Hunt Horse Complex is named after?
Yes, it is. And
I
one of
love
my heroes, I have to say, I studied him a lot for my dissertation work in
that.
leadership. Um, um, he I wanted to make sure that I was able to bring into my work as director of admissions a way to determine who would be a good fit for the School of Science and Math. Now, a lot of smart young people out there, but again, different points of, I'd say, fit to say that they would be able to leave home and stay comfortably away from mom and dad in some of the most tenuous years of your life. Some of our students, if they were in 11th grade, were as young as, I think our youngest student was 11 or 12 because they skipped grades. And so the
Wow.
maturity to kind of manage yourself, to study, to go through stress and anxiety and failures without mom and dad right there, without your tribe, your community right there, was a challenge. So one of the things I had to do was become a surrogate auntie, mama, papa, whatever I could.
Mhm.
And my office door was always open to support those young people. Because after all, I was the one that went into those communities to convince those families or those educators to allow their students to come. So I felt that obligation. I lived that, and
Mm.
it wasn't a burden. I learned as much from those young people as they felt I taught them or poured into them. Um, so long story short, I did a dissertation for my PhD on leadership efficacy. And that is the idea that people won't try something hard unless they've had a chance in their prior history to try something hard and be successful at it. And so what gives them the sense of I can try, and whether or not I succeed, I can still give it a try, and then after the try, decide I'm going to push through to be successful at it. That's what I was studying. And so the Mason Leadership Efficacy Model was kind of carved out from my own research, but also I kind of backed that from a research model, the Mind Garden research model, that had not been used since I think the mid 90s. So by
Mm.
partnering with them, I was bringing their research present to the to about 2014, 2015,
Mhm.
and also developing a model that I could copyright. And so
Mhm.
within that model, of course, that was for the School of Science and Math. I was able to determine, just from conversations with students, looking at their records, which students might be the better fit. Which student did not have, as we talked about, there may have been something like I had one student who was the quarterback up in Weldon, which is Northampton County,
Mhm.
and he was the quarterback for the championship football team. So when I went to talk to the kids, he didn't show up. And as I was leaving, the coach came and he was like, "Aren't you from School of Science and Math?" Introduced myself. He asked me, was a student in the session. I said no. He said, "Hold on just a minute." He went and got the young man, brought him to talk with me. I stayed with him for another 30 minutes. And then the coach told him he was going to be applying. Well, the young man figured, since he was the star quarterback of the winning state championship team, then he was destined to have to stay there. And the coach was saying, "No, this is bigger than this. You have to
Mhm.
go." He applied, and his brother had gone years before,
Mhm.
and got in and did exceptionally well there. But it took a combination of talking with the student and then the environment and the community that they came out of. So that's just one story, but that's how I created the model. And it took
Mhm.
some time for me to dovetail that after I come back to North Carolina and decided I was going to kind of retire and kind of
Mhm.
move back to horses. I
Mhm.
started to think, how can I use this model that I created, that I've copyrighted, to actually take a look at how some young people respond and why they respond the way they do when they're engaging with horses. So
Yeah.
I'll give a
Okay,
little
so
pause there.
this is like
A lot of info.
but this is my candy. This is my candy
I love
because
it.
I came into I always grew up in positions of leadership.
Yes.
I was always that, the well-spoken child that knew how to have conversations with adults, speaking in front of the school board. Um, I completed research at UNC while I was in high school and traveled and did science competitions all over the state. And so I was always, you know, in leadership somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until 2022 that I made those same connections of,
Yes.
and that was through a client because I started designing websites and ended up designing a
Ooh,
website for a equine facilitated leadership development company,
wow.
and then started
Amazing.
facilitating with them. And so
Amazing.
when you have seen me travel the world to Brazil and London, it was to deliver leadership programs with horses.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
Aubrey.
I say this because we both landed in very similar places,
Yes, indeed.
decades apart, not
Circuitous
even that
paths.
many not even that many miles apart. I mean, you're
Right.
just in High
Yes.
Point. I grew up in Chapel Hill.
Yes.
So, but
Amazing.
that is not something that anybody told me was a job, was
Right.
possible.
Right.
No, so every time I go to deliver a program, I'm like, look at this.
It's actually working. I
I'm
mean,
getting
people are
paid.
trying. Yes. I'm with you on that. Yes.
And so I wanted to pause right there just to make sure, our listeners are understanding that nobody planned
No.
to be here. We didn't plan to be here, but we
Yes.
got here through passion and purpose and
Yes.
where they collided.
Yes.
And it's so fascinating. And so, as we talk about what is possible in the horse industry, if we had this
Yes.
conversation in 82, it wouldn't seem as possible as it is
No.
now because we can see
We can
we have
see
developed
it.
our own self-efficacy because we have
Absolutely.
seen other people do it. And that is the whole point
Yes.
of the Kinship Conference.
Yes.
So
Thank you. Thank
let's talk about you called it a pivot, but it's a return.
you.
How did you get there? And what from you said post retirement, what did you take with you to
Mm.
get to this new point?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so the journey to this space started with my getting my PhD
Mhm.
and wanting to leverage that to to grow in my career. And there was a ceiling at the School of Science and Math. We looked at things from going from director of admissions to dean to of enrollment services, but it just wasn't happening. And along came another school in South Carolina, and they knew that I had a really strong record of a bad word these days, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. That was a big part of my leadership role at Science and Math. And what I'm most proud of, Governor Hunt, when I met with him, is he said that I don't want this school to further privileged families. I want to be ensured that this school lifts all boats. And so we want to make sure everything we do to admit them is going to really see their skills and their abilities without a lot of the stuff that says or alludes to being a top student, but we really don't know. It doesn't really measure all things like SATs and things like that. And I took that to heart. So you're exactly right. Went to South Carolina because they were willing. I was able to be director of admissions and vice president of enrollment. So that was growth. My salary, even though it was a smaller school, I think I was over 30,000, 40,000 more than at Science and Math because although they were a smaller school, they had a larger endowment. They had
Mhm.
Honda, they had Boeing, They had major manufacturers pouring into that school. And so it was a win. Black legislators wanted me to be there so that I could get the numbers up, because just like in North Carolina, the state taxpayers pay for that school. And so I was able to do that in one admission cycle. I mean, when you kind of know and you've kind of proven what it takes, it's easy. So had a good team. You got to make inroads in those communities. You got to make sure these people trust that we're going to take care of your kids, even though they're in the Bible Belt. This is important because they're not day to day with me and going to church. So I need to make sure you're going to have them following what I have them do. Establish those trusts with schools that had been ignored for 30 years. The school, and when I brought my first class in, the school turned 30. And it was one of the most diverse classes in the school's history, not just from the standpoint of a racial makeup. We had more African American, Black students, we had more Hispanic, we had more Asian, we had more Native American, which there had not been at that school. And we had more higher SATs across all of those demographics. Grades were higher, very strong class. And I guess well, I won't say I guess, I realized that the rose colored glasses I had been wearing, not everybody had on. And so I quickly recognized that they had not really wanted me to be that successful. And so then we had to, okay, I'm just being a truth teller. I'm not. We had some issues with my deciding, as these young people that I brought in, whose families trusted me to take care of them, as they were leaving to go home because they were being hazed out, not because they didn't have the ability. I had to ask myself the question, do I stay and warm a seat and keep the money that's coming in and look good at the risk of all these young people whose feet have been cut out from under them? It did not sit right with my spirit. I could not. That's not the game I'm in. I'm in uplifting. Right. I'm motivating. I'm encouraging, and empowering. So I had to make a difficult decision, and I did walk away. It was a hard choice, because I knew that this was a place that I was being sent to make a difference. And I really loved the small town of Hartsville. It was a beautiful little space. And so, and making that turnaround, I had to do a review of my career. What am I doing next? You land back here and it's COVID. And so you can't get into jobs. I was fortunate because I had worked with the school. Again, this is the beauty of life and how sometimes we have to let it play out. Because I had worked at the School of Science and Math, and I knew all parts of this state like the back of my hand. There was a medical company called StarMed in Charlotte, and they needed a Western regional manager for COVID testing and vaccinations. And so someone knew me, is like, this part of the state better than anybody. The cultures, So I had no medical background, but I knew those things, and I knew how to set up stuff. And so interview, got the position, and I did that for maybe 8 months or so. So that helped me through. Then I was able to move to Hope Reigns and then to Corral. But in those spaces, Hope Reigns was like $1 million for a ranch, a grant. I only thought institutions of higher learning with R1 research status got $1 million. I was floored. And then
I didn't realize they were grant funded.
They are a nonprofit grant funded, and they are also faith-based, very strongly faith-based. And so I was learning. It was like a new, I was back in kindergarten. I was seeing things that I did not know could be. I thought 25 years of getting grants from HUD was a big deal, but no. So
it is a big deal.
Thank you. I'll take that.
But there are other big deals, so I understand.
Yes, I was able to see there are big deals beyond what I had even fathomed, and so and that they all of their horses are rescues, and so the USA also gives them money yearly because they're housing rescues. So you mean I don't have to go out and buy $20,000 horses to populate a space if I get, it was making sense. But I was able to take it in because I wasn't going in on my career and then popping out. I was there now. I was present. I was in a learning mindset because my next thing was, okay, I'm just going to eventually start to do a program like we were doing back in High Point again. So this will be a good way to reintroduce myself. But no, I was learning so much more. I was learning about capital campaigns and how they fundraise. Fast forward to Corral, same thing. I'm going through and watching them do the I'm thinking, this is my program from 20 years ago on steroids with support and a little, and with the belief that it could be done and that I could do it. Back then, not so much. Now I know I can. But yeah, that was all a part of I think a transformation in me that had to happen so that I could see this space that I really enjoy being in, that feeds me so much. That can kind of, it's like a ministry for me in helping people to understand the advantages of being around horses. Yeah, this is something I can do at this time in my life now that I don't have the other distractions. And so I decided to take my model, the Mason Leadership Model, and say, okay, you take a look at the, now that we have AI, thank God for it. Because if I had to do it on my own, it would have taken a lot more time. And so I asked them, can you take a look at this and see if this could be replicated to programs for youth and youth leadership development equine assisted partnerships, and boom, 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 a whole program. And I'm thinking, oh my God, the booklets, the guidebooks and everything. And I'm thinking, Letita, you've been sitting on this, but I didn't know what I didn't know. I'll say it that way. And so that's why it's good to have kinship communities, because we don't know what we don't know until somebody else that you've been around has kind of done it. Or for you, with you, for instance, when I heard you on the podcast, the brother of Cheryl White.
Oh yeah, Raymond.
Oh my God! And what did they call you? A cultural specialist? What was it? Cultural expert?
Yeah, I read the book for cultural context because the author of the book was a white woman.
I'm thinking, who knew that existed?
I definitely didn't.
So thank you for introducing me to that it's in a role. And of course it's necessary because you want the dialogue to mirror what would be truthful and not something from someone's head that is not even of the same culture or race. So so yeah, it was a wake-up call, and I hate to say that I'm late to it. But better late than never. I now can really fold myself into it, and I'm blessed to be at the barn I'm at right now. It's a small barn called Green Pastures Stillwater's Barn, owned by Robert Bob Brown and his wife Brenda. A wonderful space, and I've really been able to take time now to kind of practice some of these things. Working with everyone from, of course, very young children to young people with who are on the spectrum. And I'm also consulting with Durham Public Schools right now, and most of my work is with EC, exceptional students, and the nonverbal area. And it's really because of my work with horses that I get them, I understand them. I can be in that space with them. So this has been a blessing. And I have to say, my guardian angels, I lost my mom in 2022. And a lot of the stuff with the horses, for those of you, I am pretty spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, my mom always knew about my affinity and love for horses, and she always encouraged it. Of course, that's
Mm-hmm.
why we did that program together.
Yeah.
But I knew that as I was getting toward my PhD, she kept saying, "You need to go back to horses," because it was stressful. When I left
Mm-hmm.
to go to South Carolina, I tried to find horses, and they would be there, but there was always something pulling me back from the with the job, and so.
Yeah.
Um, Hope Range she knew about before she passed, and she really loved me talking about that space. My dad was able to go there and visit. There was a horse. My dad's name is Peter. My brother's name is Peter Jr. And there's a Appaloosa there named Peter that I was very very close to. So my dad Peter got to meet the horse Peter.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah, but
that.
it really was her kind of directing me. And again, for those who don't believe in those kinds of things, after I was kind of away from Hope Reigns and I kind of finished my time at Corral Riding Academy, I was like, to myself, I'm saying I really need to find a barn. I just want a smaller one. And I was going to the grocery store not too far from my house, and I had my mom's cell phone. This is after she passed, so I had her iPhone, and it just woke up out of the blue while we were driving. It goes Green Pastures and Stillwater's barn this way, and I'm like, okay, I didn't. Okay, do you go into the grocery store and then get back? I said, no, I'm going to follow this. So I followed it. It took me to I know, it took me to the barn. I was afraid to go back up in the driveway because it was long and gravelly. And I was like, okay, they may not be happy about somebody approaching. So I went to the front door, knocked, nobody came. I finally crept back up to the barn in the back, and the guy was back there. And I was like, hi. And so he was like, come in. I went up. Mr. Brown was there, Bob. We met, we talked. I told him about my background and what I was interested in doing. I started working with him, and I've been with him for 2.5 years. And we primarily do riding lessons. Can do 4 weeks for beginner, 4 for intermediate. And we also do what we call lesson rides, where folks come out and they pay for an hour, and we give them 15 minutes of instruction. And then they get to go on a ride around the property, on trails around the property and back. Of course, we're usually walking with them because this is their first time. We want to make sure they don't get out there and something comes up. But it's been wonderful experience. I love working at that barn. I love those horses. My favorite is Ruby. She's a red. They're all Tennessee walking horses. Uh, but it's been a respite. It's been an exhale in a lot of ways. And only when I did that could I find the space to carve out to say, let me go get this thing that you've worked and you've got a copyright on and see if it could be instrumental in doing something in this space. And sure enough, so that's what my topic will be about, the self-efficacy, how we identify it, 3 pillars that we look for. The execution, the environment, and what's the third one? Oh, and internal regulation, that help us determine if the young person is going to be able to make it through at the highest level and actually show leadership in that capacity. And again, leadership. Having that was my PhD is in leadership studies, and my focus on specifically on youth leadership development because of my work with youth. But leadership, is not just somebody who's out front all the time. There's leadership from behind. There's leadership and walking around. There's collaborative leadership, situational leadership, servant leadership is my favorite, where you're there to serve. It's what you're doing to serve our community and help uplift it. But yeah, it really allowed me to embrace my studies, my work in it, brought it together, hand in glove, unwavering. I could not have done it myself, so I definitely believe that I've been guided in this direction. But thank you for
Oh,
allowing me
yeah.
to tell my story,
Of
and
course.
relive it in a positive way. Of course, going
Yeah.
through it was not positive because you're used to operating at such a high level, and then society is saying, oh no, you get back a little bit. We don't
Mhm.
want you doing that anymore. So
Yeah.
how do you redirect that energy? And I
Yeah.
landed in the best space for me, and the space that I've always really wanted to be in, but I did not have a picture of how I could do it and make a living
Yeah.
doing so. So
Yeah. Oh, this is we'll have other conversations because my
absolutely.
mind is swirling, but this is in my consulting work. Um a feeling that I call the ease of alignment.
Yes.
It's like when when you're cutting wrapping paper and the
Yes.
scissors
And it
like
goes right.
you,
Yes. In a
you
straight line.
in a straight line. It goes right through. But
Yes.
it's not a pursuit of perfection. It's not
Right.
um it's not something you can force to
You
happen.
cannot. You can. In fact,
Timing.
yes.
Timing is so key in it.
And I think it
Um
also involves a certain amount of surrender.
yes.
Because
Yes.
until I got out of my head and trying to plot the next step, which I can't see because I'm not omnipotent. I can only see as far as I know. But
Uh-huh.
once you surrender it and say, I kind of express what the focus and the interest is, and
Yeah.
then watch for the things to come.
Yes.
Um, for me, it's a place where I wish I had resided more of my life.
Yeah.
This is the beauty that I'm able to do it now. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is the path of least resistance. And when it does align, it feels like fuel, and you just rock it. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I am so I'm just so touched and just so thankful that
Oh,
you are coming to share the wisdom
wow.
and the knowledge that you have, because I've had conversations where it's like, oh, our folks don't care about learning about horses like that. We ain't even trying to. And I'm like, no,
Yes, right.
I cannot accept that as a truth. And
Yes.
it's because I met people like Dr. Letita
Oh,
who they think differently. You cannot tell me that we as a Black community don't crave more of the knowledge
yes, we
and the
do.
connection and the evidence that
Yeah,
something else is possible when I
yeah,
see it.
right. And the reason I know is so is because my life has told me that I
Exactly.
was stopped at what I thought I could see,
Uh-huh.
right? Not knowing
Uh-huh.
what was out there. We were doing it. There was a
Mhm.
need for it. There was,
Mhm.
yes. The
Yeah.
HUD was saying, yeah, there's a need for it.
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
exactly right.
It's
Yeah.
it's so like it's like nesting dolls. Like
Oh,
you research leadership and self-efficacy,
yeah.
and it required all of that for you
It sure
to
did.
show up and get to this point to even be able to share it. That is just so beautiful.
It is. And I feel like now I have brought back the gift of my work, my career work, to my passion work with
Yeah.
my horses. And now I can say, okay, don't get on me for being at the barn. There's a purpose.
Right.
Why I'm
Right.
there all the time is because I'm doing research. But
Yes.
yes, it's so much more meaningful. And I have to
Oh my
say that
goodness.
it's like coming through the fire. The probably the biggest challenge of my life was the loss of my mom.
Yeah.
Truthfully,
Yeah.
because we were so close, and my mom was she was 4'9". We called her the little general. Yeah, because you never said that she was short. No one ever said that to her, because she was bigger than life. Oh, but I knew that so many people went to college, so many people got in their careers, so many people got stuck. My mom was behind it, and and as people came in from in our hometown of High Point, She was a part of the refugee center. So as folks came in from Vietnam or from Africa, were needing to be resettled and rehomed, my mom was a part of their life, that she was the auntie or grandma. And so that also meant that I didn't walk away feeling like these were others. I just knew that this, but by the grace of God, there go I. If my family got in a circumstance in our country and I had to leave, those kinds of things. So I'm so grateful for her. I'm so grateful that she's still with me and she's still a drive. I know she's a driving force because, like I said, that phone directed me to Green Pastures. That was simply amazing. And after that, and after I had the conversation with Brown and it was set, I got in the car and coming back, I said, I would never question, never, ever again, because it is something truthful to this thing that is happening. And maybe we're moving into a time where, the veil has been pulled back a little bit enough for us not to see those things as spooky, but just part of life. We kind of are moving into a dimension where, there's not a lot between us and them. They just don't have a dense body where we can see them, but they are still here, no doubt in my mind, 100%. And our horses and our doggies, they're all still around us too.
Yeah.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes,
A
please.
question back to you. Right now we're dealing with this thing with they are uh, um, driving the horses away and capturing them and selling them off at $25 a head. I'm understanding to slaughter. Um, we're in a community that I feel like is a mirror to humankind.
Yeah.
Uh, Horses are big and they may be fearsome in some people's eyes, but they're also beautiful and majestic. I think humans can be seen the same way. Some of us are beautiful, majestic. Some of us can be seen as fearful, and our features may look scary. Like some of the kids tell me the horse's eyes are so big, or the nostrils are so big, and that's what they focus on. So I think it's a mirror to our society right now. If we could do that to horses, what does that say about our culture and where we are? And not that you have to answer, but I just like to put that out there. And I put that out there because I am so happy to be involved right now with horsemanship, which is kind of evolved to the partnering of horses as opposed to dominating and breaking. When I think of the breaking part, I think about my enslaved ancestors and the desire to break us. And so I always think about that with the horses. They are feeling creatures and beings too. And so just that's an interesting perspective on that. It's heartbreaking to see that happening. And I hope that our country, after seeing the shadow side of our collective conscious, is now able to move to our enlightened side and say, embrace that and say, this is the way we want to go forward. That's what I'll say about that.
I will say, because I just released a video on YouTube about this.
Okay.
That one of the things that I've had to force myself to be in a practice of is questioning what the latest headline is.
Okay. Yes.
And why it's a headline right now.
Yes.
Because
very much so.
What they're saying about, selling the horses, granted, there is this like prairie or rangeland to slaughterhouse pipeline, but the sale of horses for $25 from the Bureau of Land Management is not a new thing.
Okay.
It's been happening for decades. You get to rehome.
Gotcha.
It's not new, and I've gone to there was one at the Hunt Horse Complex,
Oh,
and I had someone on the podcast, Demetrius Sanders. He is a Black man that works with the BLM. This was in 2019. I had him on the podcast, and I
okay.
met him, I want to say, in 2022, but I was able to understand more about what is happening,
Please, that
and
would be
multiple
great.
things can be true at once.
Okay.
Um, we love horses, and we love what they represent, and we
Mhm.
love what they have to offer us. And they also have an impact on the rangelands,
Yes.
and they are multiplying faster than they are being removed.
Okay.
No, I don't agree with roundups. I don't agree, like, but
Yeah.
also I don't have any solutions for that, right?
Understand.
Um, but through the leadership work that I have done,
Okay.
I would go out to Central California, and the model of leadership that I facilitate was created at a wild horse refuge. So
Oh, look
we
at
would
that.
ride our UTVs out to find the herd and interact with them and see how they navigate uncertainty. That was the frame of reference that we were using to
Okay.
develop leaders. And we learned about the vaccines that they're using to try to control fertilization. We
Okay.
talked about how there's this inference or connection that we can make to people. It's so funny to me that the
Mhm.
focus of the fertilization research is vaccinating mares, when the mares can only have
Interesting.
one baby a year, when you could be vaccinating the stallions
Right.
who are breeding
Right.
10, 12 mares
Right.
a year.
The mare has one baby a year, but the stallion can be pregnant 12 or 20 in a year.
It's
Okay. Interesting. Oh, this
I
is a whole nother podcast.
this is a
We got
whole
this is interesting.
It truly is. And when I tell you, I just published that video this morning because of this sensationalizing.
Yes. Thank
Oh
you.
my gosh. We're all of a sudden, the American Association of Equine Practitioners and the American Veterinary Medical Association put out a policy, a joint policy in 2019, calling for the exact things that Project 2025 has. It is referenced in Project 2025.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know me, I'm like, I am not here for the selective outrage. Well,
Yes.
now all of a sudden, y'all are reading page 527 and
Right.
528. When you didn't read it,
At
to
all before.
there were 12 mentions of horses in 900 pages. There were 199 mentions of abortion.
Oh gosh.
We not gonna pretend like we real upset right now.
Right. Like see no evil, evil speak no evil. Yes.
I'm like, okay, that y'all can, yeah, but so it's not new.
Okay.
Yes, it needs to be improved, but because the New York Times dropped an article on it about it,
Then,
that's what's causing this.
which makes it
Yeah.
political too.
Yes.
Yes. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I'm so glad you brought that up though, because that was literally today.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for just sharing your journey and where you're looking to in the future. As someone who delivers leadership development programming with horses, I just admire how far you have come.
Thank
Because
you.
I'm all about ownership of intellectual property. I'm all about
Yes.
a good methodology. Like,
Amen.
this crosses over so much of my professional experience.
Thank you.
I cannot wait for the attendees of the Kinship Conference to learn from you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I want to grow up to be like you, Aubriana, one day. I'm telling you, so just so you know. But yes, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it motivates and inspires someone.
I love that.
But thank you also for understanding the need for this.
Mhm.
Just like we're recognizing now that we are needing to go back to our small farmers because of all the things. It is so
Can't eat
necessary now to
anything.
have this community. So thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you for having your pink finger always on the pulse point. And I will be following you to infinity and beyond.
I love it.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Black in the Saddle. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast and player and over on YouTube. You can also join us on Patreon. We started that new this year, and that is where the behind the scenes lives, okay? Behind the scenes of episodes, of events that we're planning this year, and much, much more. So I cannot wait to see you over there.